Hey, what's going on, you beautiful people? Welcome to, we'll call it episode 2 of the Joey and Mary show. Uh, in this video, though, we kind of just wanted to talk to you about how we were able to buy the 3 homes that we do have. The biggest tool that we actually have in our belt, the same tools that you guys have in your belt, is owner occupant loans. And so all that means is that you're actually moving into the property. And so whenever you see us moving from, I say town to town, but Greenville to Wilmington and then another house in Wilmington, all of that is so that we have access to that loan so that you can put low or no money down in some cases. So our first home that we bought, I read a book and it snapped and I was like, we've got to get into real estate investing. And so I am blessed. Some people say I earned it, whatever. But since I was in the military, I have access to the VA loan. And the VA loan is a powerful, powerful tool if you're in the military. You have access to literally buy a home. I don't remember the exact amount of the entitlement, and it just changed. It's up to like $400,000 with 0% down money. You can have all of your fees wrapped into the loan. So our first home that we bought, it was in Greenville. We paid $117,000 for it. And I think out of pocket, we spent $1,000. Is that right, babe? Mm-hmm. Like $1,040 or something. Is there anything you want to add to that?
No, I mean, that's
just our first home.
Yeah, that was just the first home that we bought. It was in Greenville, North Carolina. I knew nothing about buying houses. It was just very scary because I thought that like the roof was going to break immediately. And I don't know, you just kind of hear horror stories. And I just was scared of the concept because I wasn't educated about it.
Yeah, at that time too, like I wasn't a real estate agent or anything. Like we were living in an apartment. It was like 700 square feet. We were like, I came home I read this book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, and we'll talk about that later on also. But I came home and I was like, babe, we got to buy a house. Like we got to go now.
And I was like, you're crazy. I don't even know. I think I was working full time. I don't even think he was working full.
I think I was working pest control at that time. If you know us personally, you know I've had like 20 jobs in the last 10 years. So I was doing pest control, making like $12 an hour. Mary was making pretty good money at Sport Clips. But I mean, that's what we did. And probably a month after that night, you know, I was in the kitchen with like, our kitchen was also our living room because it was like this big.
700 square feet.
I was in the kitchen with like a whiteboard and like pencil and paper, like showing her numbers. Like it was like one of those TV shows that you see where the guy's all excited about the business idea and his wife is like, no, you're an idiot, like this is not gonna work. Like, but then like 2 months later we hooked up with my Aunt Debbie, my sister's aunt, and she helped us pick out a home right over by Vidant Hospital, which we honestly still had no idea that was going to be like a good buy, a bad buy, or whatever.
I think it was the first house that we looked at. I think it was the first house I looked at.
So we went and looked at a home in the same neighborhood with a different realtor. Yeah. And then we never signed any paperwork with them, so this is legal. But we never signed any paperwork with them. And then like my aunt, I remember that she was a real estate agent. She actually had dinner with my sister or whatever, and she was like, yeah, well, I'm an agent, I can help them. And so I was like, oh shoot, okay. And so then we were actually riding around. We went and looked at like 5 or 6 different places, and I was trying to buy the worst place in Greenville I could possibly find. And thank God she was like, Joey, this is your first house, like you guys do not need to buy this. It was like a $50,000 house that probably would have took $70,000 that we didn't have to fix up.
There was gunshots in it.
Yeah, there was some rough ones that we looked at. But then yeah, I mean, we ended up buying that property, and it's not like this property has been a home run for us by any means. It's like I was saying in our first video, this isn't a get rich quick scheme. I think our first year on our tax income, we showed a loss of like $3,000 or something like that. However, if you actually look at the loan and like the appreciation that we're getting, I know Greenville is a little bit slower than Wilmington, but it is appreciating. ECU is growing. Vidant is, I think it's growing as far as I know. But I mean, it's been good to us ever since. We've had some issues with evictions and stuff like that we'll definitely get into later on. And maybe it's like a horror episode or something. But just, I mean, like we were saying in the first video too, we're just still learning all the time, and there's just stuff happening that you'll never be ready for. But you just take it and swing the bat when the ball comes.
Yeah, so he talked a little bit about loans, and that's definitely been a huge helper. We have used owner occupancy loans. Is that what they're called?
Owner occupant
I don't really even know what they're called.
We'll just say it's like an owner occupant loan.
Okay, that. But we've also used conventional loans. This last one was a 5% conventional loan. So we've kind of used different loans, but like I said, we were able to buy 3 houses with under $7,000, and we did it in about 26 months. And how the loan types were a huge part of able to do that. Also, we just saved money. We live like a pretty frugal life besides traveling, where we make traveling a priority for us, But besides that, I mean, we really just started keeping track of every dollar and just being aware of what we were spending money on. I mean, like whiteboard, like we spent this much eating out in March and this money went to Amazon purchases, and we just began tracking money and seeing what we were spending on what we could cut out. And that meant, not giving into instant gratification. We don't drive the nicest cars, and there's been multiple times of where I've gone to test drive a car and I cried on the way home because I didn't get it. But it's not instant gratification. We're building a future, and we're building something that is going to be so worth it in the end. And so we've also been really hardcore into side hustles, DoorDash and Uber Eats and Postmates and everything. And obviously Airbnb has been a tremendous value to us. I mean, Airbnb, that's been a huge part of how we've been able to do what we do. So our first house in Greenville that we bought, we long-term rent that out now. It's on a year-to-year lease right now. Our Suncoast home here in Wilmington, which we bought back in March of 2019, that is now, we used it just as an Airbnb and a spare bedroom. I think last year we ended up making about $9,300 just off of a spare bedroom for the year during COVID. And you're like $9,300 for a year for a spare bedroom. And I think it was for about 11 and a half months. And so it came out to like $800 a month. And so maybe you're like $800 a month, that's it. $800 a month is your mortgage a lot of the time, like what could you do with an extra $800? And like,
it's a lot of money.
and so some people are like, well, you had strangers in your house. Yes. And we have some good stories from it, but we also, I mean, a lot of, situations were good and we met amazing people. We have, some new friends in New Zealand now that we met through Airbnb, but it was just a super awesome platform that we were able to really just create income off of and everything.
Honestly, I mean, it literally changed our life. Airbnb did. Buy Airbnb out of that spare bedroom. So a little bit of the story too is when we moved from Greenville. So with an owner occupant loan, you are supposed to live in the property for 1 year. In most cases, the VA loan, it's not even really a gray area. It actually doesn't say that. It's a myth that people think that you have to live in the property a year. You do have to intend to make that your primary property, which is what we did. And then about 6 months later, Mary got a job offer to move here as a manager. And fortunately, we were in a position, I was working a different job again, and so I was making a little bit more money, and so we were able to qualify for a loan in Wilmington. However, we were able to use that VA loan again. But a short period after moving here, the job that I had, I absolutely hated it. Surprise. And so I wanted to get out of it. And so I took my license. I took my realtor class and got my real estate license and stuff. But honestly, Airbnb out our home on our spare bedroom, Airbnb out our spare bedroom enabled me to be able to quit my job and pursue real estate full time because we were making on a minimum $1,000 a month in 2019. I think our best month that year, our prices were still pretty low, so it was like $1,200 or $1,300 a month. And then this past year, it went up even more. I think our best month this past year in August through COVID was like $1,800.
Yeah.
But also talking about side hustles and stuff. I mean, I would stay out some nights until 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, Ubering drunk people around town in my little Honda Insight that just gets 40 miles to the gallon. But we bought for $6,000 from a used dealer or whatever. I mean, it's nothing special. It's definitely not glamorous right now. There's a piece of plastic hanging from the bottom of it that I have to get up underneath and pin up. But I mean, those are like the little sacrifices. Like, we don't drive nice vehicles like Mary was saying. I mean, you got to hustle. There's got to be sacrifices to be
Yeah.
made. And one of those big sacrifices, especially for Mary, for Airbnb, like when we first signed up for it, we we were just talking about it, and like we've been talking about it for a while, and I was like, I'm just gonna do it. And so on Wednesday night, we finally got the listing up, and we put it up on Airbnb, and we were like, let's just see what happens. By Thursday morning, I was still working my job. By Thursday morning at like 8:30, we already had both nights booked by two different like groups or whatever, two different people. And so, we were like, at that point too, we had it to where we had to accept it. So like I text Mary, I'm like, babe, like, are we going to do this? Like, are we going to accept it? And she was like, okay, like, let's do it. And so we just accepted it, and they came in, they stayed at our house. Both groups just happened to be Marines down from Jacksonville. Just coming for the night, doing whatever they do. We'll talk about that later on a different episode too. But, but that's how we were like, holy crap, we made $80-90 this weekend. And literally we swept, mopped, changed some sheets, wiped the toilet off, and like, we were just good to go. But it does just come down to sacrifices, and what you're willing to put in is what you'll definitely get out. So,
yeah, it's just choosing. It's choosing your heart. And we decided that we just saw the value in this and what it could do for our future, which we'll talk about in the next video, and kind of our plans for the future and why that we're doing all this. But in over 2 years, we've moved 3 times. And we've just made decisions that we're going to put this first. And, we definitely, play some too. Like I said, we vacation a lot. But, we just realized that this was a huge opportunity and that we wanted to take it. And like I said, a big way that this became possible was through educating ourselves. Joey reading that book, and then we just kind of have listened to so many different people, and Bigger Pockets has been a huge platform for him. And it's just.
Whenever I first found, I stumbled upon Bigger Pockets, which is a huge real estate investing podcast. They are almost exclusively free. They have a humongous like YouTube following, Spotify. They're on every podcast you could want to watch or whatever. And so I would just turn it on every single morning. I would drive to Goldsboro when I was working from Greenville to Goldsboro, and I would listen to it for every single morning for 50, 60 minutes on my ride to work. And it really did it changed my life with the education that you can get from it. Also with a ton of books also. And then I will say, going to get your realtor license, it does help you be more comfortable with the process. However, we bought our first 2 homes before I even had my license.
Yeah, he didn't plan to go into real estate. Like, we actually took the class together before we moved to Wilmington. So in like January of 2019, we started taking the class together just to get more educated on real estate, because we were like, we don't really know anything. We don't know the legality side of things. He didn't plan to go into real estate at all.
Yeah, I didn't plan on being an agent. We wanted to be investors.
Yeah.
And I was just going to work a normal job, and we were just going to invest on the side until we didn't have to anymore. But ultimately, about halfway through the first time I took the class, we just ended up moving during this first one, so I had to take it again. What was I saying? Literally, my mind just went completely blank. What was that?
You were just talking about you had to take the class the first time and everything, but then we ended up moving. But you just became more invested in it, and
yeah. So about halfway through the class, I was like, "Holy crap, man! Like, if we're gonna invest and like do this, and like I might as well just like jump into this. I could go ahead and get my license, and I'll still work my 9-to-5 job. But if I can help other people buy real estate, or if I could do our own deals, and that's just an added plus. And I'll tell you, a lot of the investors that I run into, especially the higher up people, they actually tell people not to get their real estate license. For number one, it's a liability, and number two, it's another job. And so we'll talk about that more later also. I know we're leaving a lot of things open here. But a lot of people don't want to work another job. So if you have a real estate agent who can do that stuff for them while they take care of the day-to-day operations, they like to do that. So it can definitely be a plus or a minus as far as getting your real estate license. There's positives or pros and cons to both sides as far as investing and then helping other people invest also.
Yeah, I think also a big part that was cool with our last home is part of the reason also we were able to put such low money down is with this last house, he was our realtor for the deal. So we were able to cut almost the original down payment of the 5% down in half using his commission for that. And so you are able to use the commission towards different things if you want to in the loan. And so that's a huge piece of also kind of just different tips and tricks that we've picked up that were like, well, that's going to help us. That's going to help us. And
yeah, so you definitely don't have to have a real estate license to do what I do. And that's one thing that like we're here for, is because like I can represent. I'm not here to like represent you to get paid, but I can like help you and guide you through the process of finding a home or buying a home and living in a home, house hacking the home. But one thing that we didn't talk about on the first two homes, so our first home in Greenville, we bought it with a VA loan. Our second home, since we were moving, we were able to utilize that VA loan again because you have a certain amount of entitlement. And so we're maxed out now with that second home. And then our third home, so since we've already used two VA loans, we would have to refinance out of it and then ask for like our entitlement back through the VA in order to utilize our VA loan again, that you could only do one time. So our third home, though, we did end up having to go a conventional route, and we'll talk about the actual like different loan types later on in the future. But we started to go after a FHA loan, which is for people with lower credit, but it's a loan program where you can only put 3.5% down on a home up to 4 units. So you could literally buy a quadruplex with only 3.5% down. We weren't able to do that just because of some income stuff, and so we ended up going conventional. So we had to put 5% down. Okay, well that stinks. So we had to put more money down because we really just wanted to put a 3.5% down. But with 5% on a $190,000 house, it worked out to $9,850 if I'm remembering that number correctly.
sure, I knew it was around 9,000.
I think that's what it was. And then my real estate commissions was just about half that at like $4,700. So it pretty much just split that in half right there, which was a big bonus. And that's what helps keep that number, the total number for our 3 homes, under like $7,000 for all 3 homes.
Yeah. So that was pretty, in depth, and just kind of talking about some pieces of how, we've been able to do this. In the next video in the series, we're going to talk some about, why we're doing this, why we chose to do this, what got us really interested in this. And
Yeah, so if you've made it this far with us, we appreciate you watching. We've got all these bullet points planned out, and I think before we started talking right now, I don't think either one of us expected to talk this long about any part of this. But I mean, I do appreciate you guys following or following along, and we'll see you guys in the next video.
Bye.